Hey, it's Coach Anderson here again from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online U.S. History from 1877 to present. Today we're going to start Unit 4. Unit 4 is U.S. becomes a world power. It's going to be America's quest for colonies from 1872 to 1917. We're going to find that this is going to spark a debate in the country whether or not we should be gaining colonies around the world or should we not be gaining colonies around the world. And the typical belief was that, America started out as a colony, of course, of England. And because of that heritage that we had, there are a lot of people in the country that thought that the United States of America's quest for colonies, of course, was something that we should avoid at all costs. But we're going to dive into a little bit of it today. If you have your journal, go ahead today and take out your journal and write down the various questions, of course, and for the lesson focus and then the vocabulary, and just kind of follow along. Just as we start, with lesson 1 here today, it says the case for American imperialism. And once again, there's an argument for it and there's an argument against it. And what we'll try to do is dive into it and see where you land. The unit focus question for Unit 4 is going to be, why did nations around the world, including the United States of America, seek to gain colonies around the world? And once again, it's a big debate in this country whether or not we should. But at the end of the day, the United States of America does become an imperial power. Today we'll start with the do now activity. A few of the do now activities that we'll have in this particular unit will be primary source material that has quotes from various people about their beliefs about imperialism, and we'll try to go through them as much as we can, and we'll give you some kind of insights in terms of what we think. The first do now that we have today, it says, reflect on the meaning of the quote, particularly the underlined bit from John Fiske in Harper's Magazine in 1885. The ideal of the United States was and is to extend itself over the whole continent. Sounds like manifest destiny to me. We have now to examine not the manner in which this was done, but the fact that it was done. And it is a fact that the national self-consciousness of the United States was from the beginning dominated by the belief in the destiny of the Republic to extend its territory and its influence over the continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Well, when you look at that, I think one of the things, of course, that does jump out to you, of course, is going to be the idea of manifest destiny. And the most important thing is what you see in that second sentence is we have now to examine not the manner in which it was done, but the fact that it was done. In other words, we don't care about how we expand. We just want to be concerned with the fact that it was done. And now we have to deal with whatever consequences, of course, that come along with that. Well, with that, what we're going to do is start looking at vocabulary, just as we always tell you. We're going to try to address the vocabulary as we go, but if it's for whatever reason something that we miss, you can always go back, of course, and look it up yourself. And it would be a bad idea, of course, for you to go ahead and put these terms, of course, in your journal. The lesson focus, we have 2 lesson focus questions for lesson 1. So as we go through the information from lesson 1, let these 2 questions kind of guide your thought process. This is, how did the United States become a world power? And was the Pacific region the natural answer for the United States' search for new markets for American industrial products? Making the case for imperialism. Well, as we said, there were some people in the country, of course, that didn't like the idea of the United States of America colonizing the rest of the world. But there were some, of course, who believed that because of the industrial might of the United States of America and because of our production, that we needed colonies where we could sell products and not have to pay tariffs, of course, on those products. So the competition that the United States received from Europe caused a shift in the belief that the U.S. should spread its influence beyond the national boundaries through imperialism. The U.S. was behind most of the European nations already who had already started colonization. And one of the biggest, influences was that if you had your own colonies where you could sell your products, then you didn't have to, of course, pay taxes or tariffs. We have 2 vocabulary words that jump up to mind here. Imperialism is the first one, and imperialism is colony building. And what colony building basically is when a strong nation takes over weaker nations to do what it can, of course, to sell its own products and exert its influence. At this time, we will take a brief pause and allow students to access the video on American imperialism in the video description. The video outlines steps taken by the United States on its way to becoming an imperial power. Enjoy the video. Factors which influenced the American shift to imperialism: to gain access to natural resources that were in short supply, find new markets for American industrial products that allowed the U.S. to create protectorates or places where we could control and start to expand our influence. The belief that the United States and other industrial nations were the superior and had this duty to spread civilization and Christianity, and this became known as the white man's burden. It was an idea that was created by Rudyard Kipling, the author of the Jungle Book that we'll talk about. So when you look at the reasons for imperialism, there's a good case to be made for it. And the biggest and most important one was about Christianity. A lot of imperial nations like the United States of America, Great Britain, Spain, Germany, a lot of those nations, of course, believe that it's their responsibility, of course, to spread, Christianity, of course, into the uncivilized world. And then a byproduct of that, of course, would be that we gain markets and influence in those places. Here's a picture of Rudyard Kipling. He was a British author that came up with that wrote the book, The Jungle Book, with Mowgli. Most of you are probably familiar with a little bit. It's a pretty good little book. It's a pretty good little read. If you get a chance, of course, go back, of course, and look at that particular book by Kipling.